Chapter 133, Zhang San's Investment 1. To most people in the Seven Blood Eyes, this night was no different from usual. However, to some people, it was a little different. Some sighed with emotion. They envied him for being extraordinary. Some were furious and swore to tear him into pieces. Someone was sitting in a rocking chair, and the fruit pits beside him had piled like a hill. Someone in the inn felt bitter and panicked. Sometimes, to judge whether a person had integrated into the environment, you didn't have to look at their achievements or actions, but look at how many people's emotions they could stir. The envious disciples in Port 79, the hysterical Murphy cultivators, the captain of Team 6 who had a mountain of fruit pits piled beside him, and the flustered diamond sex ancestor. However, no matter what, when the morning light scattered down, the thoughts of the night also slowly faded. It was like people left the sea after dancing merrily the whole night. Hence, when the morning light scattered down from the dilapidated cabin and reflected outside Xu Qing's eyelids, he opened his eyes and fused the energy in his eyelids with the brightness of the outside world. His eyes, which were revealed under the sunlight, were sparkling. Just like the morning sun outside, they were filled with anticipation for the future. "I wonder if the morning on the sea will have a different charm," Xu Qing mumbled softly. There was yearning in the depths of his eyes as he stood up. He had many things to do today. Firstly, he had to make a trip to the homicide department to apply for a long leave for the trip out to sea. This process wasn't complicated in the homicide department. Most of the time, the disciples of the Seventh Peak weren't at the port. Since they cultivated the sea, they naturally had to go out to sea. After he came to the homicide department to report, Xu Qing completed a series of procedures and obtained a 40-day leave. If he returned early, he could cancel the remaining leave. If the time was delayed, he could also make up for it later. It was still early when he finished all these, but Xu Qing's pace didn't slow down. He went to the shops of the Sixth Peak. Although the previous event was not likely to happen again, he had no choice but to be wary. Hence, he spent some effort searching for a shop. However, in the end, Xu Qing still hesitated. He looked at a shop and was about to enter when the captain's voice transmission came in his identity token. "Xu Qing, have you forgotten something?" Xu Qing started as he pondered. "Forget it. I'll make it clear." "Xu Qing, when are you going to return the 500 spirit stones you owe me?" Xu Qing's eyes narrowed as he replied. 100 spirit stones. All right, I won't argue with you so much. 300 it is. When are you going to give it to me?" Xu Qing fell silent and took out the bamboo slip with the enemies' names engraved on it. He then crossed out the question mark behind the word captain. "Why aren't you saying anything? I saw that you, kid, applied for leave from the department. Don't tell me you're going out to sea to escape your debt? Forget it. It's very dangerous to go out to sea and it demands a lot from the magic boat. In order to not let you die outside, and cause my 500 spirit stones to go down the drain, let me remind you that you should look for Zhang San to refine the magic boat." Zhang San. Xu Qing was a little puzzled. When he spoke of Zhang San, the captain seemed to have gotten more interested. He gave some pointers in the voice transmission and even told Xu Qing how to react and speak before ending the voice transmission. Xu Qing stood and pondered for a long time. In the end, he looked for Zhang San from the transportation department with doubts. When he arrived at the transportation department, Zhang San was squatting on a pile of goods and smoking a pipe. Like an old man, his expression was tranquil as he enjoyed the flavor of tobacco and sunlight. From time to time, he would shout a few times to instruct the handyman of the transportation department to work. When he saw Xu Qing's figure, Zhang San's eyelids narrowed slightly. After sizing him up carefully, his eyes lit up. "Ah, how is junior brother Xu so free to come to my place today?" Xu Qing walked closer and looked at Zhang San, who was squatting on the goads. He then leapt onto the goads as well. However, this time, before he could approach a certain distance, Zhang San quickly moved further away. Xu Qing glanced at Zhang San and squatted down. Zhang San smiled as he looked at Xu Qing under the sunlight, especially his side profile that was enough to make the opposite sex infatuated. He couldn't help but mutter a few words in his heart, but his expression didn't reveal it at all. "It's better to squat down, Xu Qing nodded. "What's the matter, senior brother John?" "I want to refine and upgrade my magic boat." "Refining a magic boat? Who told you to look for me?" Your captain. Zhang San was stunned. Xu Qing didn't say anything. He took out 2 apples and gave one to Zhang San. Zhang San instinctively took the apple. After he held it in his hand, he suddenly regretted it and wanted to return it. However, Xu Qing didn't take it. Zhang San smiled bitterly, and a hint of contemplation slowly appeared in his eyes. After weighing the apple in his hand, he looked at Xu Qing. Xu Qing tilted his head and looked at him. A long time later, Zhang San suddenly laughed. Promise me one thing and I'll help you refine it. Senior brother Zhang, please speak. Xu Qing noticed the words in the other party's words. He wasn't going to look for someone to refine the magic boat, but was personally refining it. When you look at me in the future, can you not stare at my neck? It's such a hot day, but I feel cold. Zhang San winked at Xu Qing. Xu Qing thought about it and shifted his gaze to look into Zhang San's eyes. Zhang San patted his head and sighed. Your gaze always makes me feel strange. It's as though the area you look at will be injured. Forget it. Forget it. It's very rare for you to change your gaze. It'll help you refine it. However, I'll say this in advance. My refinement is very expensive. As he spoke, Johnson jumped down from the goods and waved at Xu Qing.